MPs have defended government's decision to absorb up to 60% of the car loans being given members of the 8th Parliament. Deputy Finance Minister Abnosa Asari laid a paper on the floor of the House requesting approval of the facility this week. Details from the document show government will on a monthly basis pay up to 60% of the loan amount, with the rest deducted from the MP salaries each month. Government will also absorb the full interest on the loan, while the tax on the vehicle will also be waived. Parliamentary correspondent Joseph Akable has been speaking with MPs about the controversial loan and joins me in the studio. Now, MPs must be excited to have access to a car loan that's also interest-free.
In fact, a lot of them say that is something that they are very much aware of, that they are good with in terms of it being interest-free and all. But they insist that they are surprised that that's actually the situation. In fact, the point they make is that a lot of them hadn't seen this report, the latest report having to do with the Intiama Bedu Committee's report that was approved by the House. Funny enough, they sat in a meeting of a committee of the whole, went through the deliberations and went ahead to approve that of the executive. And the indication was that discussions were held in relation to that having to do with their parliamentarians, although it's the executive arm of government that approved that of parliament. But they say some of these provisions are things that they are not aware of. They hadn't seen the report on their own. A lot of them are hesitant about having further conversations about this. They make the point that they were expecting that, particularly with this loan, they would be paying it back in full. So even the 60% bit is something that they are finding, and they've not been aware of it for all this while. One of them have actually been speaking to us, Kwame Gakwe, who is the MP for the Keta constituency. He makes the point that even this provision, with the 40% of it being paid by them, is a burden that government should lift off them one way or the other. Okay, I think we should listen to Kwame Gakwe.
They give them car. The car, they fuel it, they are entitled to driver, and then maintenance are all borne by the state. So they should procure 275 vehicles, assign drivers, fuel it, do maintenance, and then assign to members of parliament to use. At the end of the day, when we are going, we leave it as how ministries and departments and government offices run, because this is a part of governance. But this car loan given to you, you must know that you are paying for it. You are buying your own fuel. You are doing your own maintenance. Nobody will give you maintenance fee. At the end of the day, you are paying the driver. So which is better? I will go for total rejection of the loan and then go for the routine running of government, have to procure and distribute and then maintain.
The criticism is that if it's coming at an interest-free rate, there is tax exemption on it. You are reading documents that say MPs may end up paying back only about 40 or 60% and not that fully the amount to be paid back. Isn't that still too much burden that has been placed on the taxpayer, as is being argued by a lot of campaigners on social media?
It is rather government placing a burden on the MPs. It's a burden on the MPs. We are paying for maintenance. You are paying for the driver, you are buying fuel. So that is why I'm saying I'm not interested in the car loan given to MPs. We are interested in government providing vehicle for MPs to use and pay for it, fuel it, pay for the drivers, as well as pay for maintenance of the car.
My last question would be, for those who are criticizing this, the activists criticizing this on social media and all, what will you say to them?
I'm saying they say lack of knowledge, my people perish. Maybe they need education about the whole thing. And then it's a loan. It's a loan package for MPs. It's not free. I get in the point. It's not totally free that people think it's a free thing they are giving to MPs. It's not free. But for me, my candid opinion is that I'm not interested in a loan. If the government can do the needful and supplies vehicle, driver, fuel, maintenance, I'll be glad to go. So that the money that they are deducting, I can pick that money. Whatever car I want to buy as an MP, I can buy my own car. But at the end of the day, official vehicles are given to us to run. Because the loan they give you is like a private vehicle you are using to for official work. And that is why I'm rejecting it.
Thank you.
So that's Kwame Gakwe, one of the MPs to benefit from these loans. But what has been the practice? Has government always absorbed 60% of the loan for the MPs?
From what the MPs tell us previously, all that has happened is they get a tax exemption on the facility, and additionally, they end up getting the interest rate on the amount not being paid by themselves, but by the state. And additionally, usually over the 4-year period, the currency depreciates, the cedi depreciates as against the dollar. You know, the amount is pegged in dollars, but it's actually paid back in cedi. So there is usually a huge difference by the end of the 4-year duration. So whatever difference that may be as well, government ends up paying it on behalf of the MPs. But they've insisted that in terms of the principal amount, as far as whatever they take as car loans are concerned, they end up paying that back fully, apart from those associated parts of it. Except that in this particular report by Professor Berin Tiamwa, then the recommendation was made that apart from the other facilities like security that they got, the office accommodation, the residential accommodation allowance, which is around 20% of their salary, this component was introduced for themselves as well as members of the Council of State to then have up to 60% of the cost of the loan borne by the state.
Has the committee explained why that recommendation?
Well, we know that MPs have repeatedly agitated that they think it's unfair that they are being given loans in order to make use of the loans to then do official business. And so then they needed a facility that would allow them, for example, to have vehicles in Parliament that they can use and leave when they are exiting office. So it was more like a compromise position, which will then say, instead of maybe giving you vehicles like ministers of state, let's rather than pay back portions of the loan, so that then it cushions them a bit, because they've repeatedly agitated that they thought they were being treated very much unfairly compared to the judiciary and the executive arm of government.
Thankfully, we're joined by Dr. Rashid Rahman of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Thank you so much, Doc, for your time. I'm sure you've been following the conversations about the MP's car loans. I'd first want to have your initial thoughts, and then we'll come to what is best practice.
Well, Aisha, good evening. My initial thought that, you know, this conversation, we've had it every 4 years since the beginning of the Fourth Republic. And, you know, my position on this has always been, you know, some of what have been echoed by the MP that you spoke to from Keta, as well as maybe some other members of Parliament. And look, if we say that our democratic practice is based on a government that stands on 3 arms or 3 legs, I mean, however we'll call it, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. You know, you go and look at the practice within the executive. I think from the lowest level, district chief executive, up to the Minister of State. You know, they are provided with vehicles to do their work. You go to the judiciary, it's the same thing. I think, to be honest with you, Parliament also deserves, you know, the same kind of support in order that honorable members can do their work. I mean, I know there are many who jump and start saying, you know, how about performance and so on. They are disappointed with performance of Parliament and so on. I think that's a separate conversation altogether. But we need to get this thing right. If a Minister of State will not take a loan to buy a car and do executive work, so must not an MP take a loan to buy a car and do legislative work.
Doc, so let's look at other jurisdictions. What pertains in other jurisdictions, do we know?
Yes, so what happens in other places, Aisha, and I think that this is where perhaps maybe our country would need to learn. Indeed, when you look at, you know, the practice in most countries on the continent, particularly you go down south, maybe to Southern Africa, I can cite the example of a parliament like Botswana. No MP is given any car. No MP is given any loan to buy a car. They have cars that are in the central pool in the Ministry of Transport or whatever ministry is responsible. And when committees have to go and do work, when MPs need cars, these cars are issued out to them. They go and do their work and they return them back to the pool. And I'm talking about, ordinary cars, Kia, SUVs and so on, not this, fuel gasless that we end up spending our money on as a country. And for me, this even extends to the executive and to the legislature. We have no business, Aisha, providing 2-3 cars to all these government officials as a country. We don't have the resources to do that. We really need to have take a second look at this whole kind of arrangement about how our officials are transported and how they are facilitated to do their work. It's not only Parliament. I think we need to extend it to other branches of government.
Mm. So your recommendation then is?
My recommendation is, honestly, for the MPs who are saying they are rejecting it, I think for me, I support their position. I was really surprised to hear that government is absorbing 50% of it. And so this is a significant improvement if you compare the 8th Parliament to the previous Parliament, because in the previous Parliament, government doesn't absorb any percentage of the loan. So this is a significant improvement. However, as the honourable member on your program said, they are still saddled with the burden of having to maintain, and so on and so forth. And if you permit me, the weakest link in the 3 constitutionally mandated functions of Parliament is representation. We all complain we don't see our MPs and so on. I come from the north. I come from Salaga, and if my honourable member has to travel all the way from Accra to Salaga, that is quite a distance. And I don't expect the MP to use her resources to come to the constituency to do constituency work. So I think we need to really have a conversation around this, and then extend that beyond this arm of government to other arms of government, so that as a country we ask ourselves, can we afford, to give vehicles to all our officials? If not, what mechanism can we use? Do we have it in a pool like happens in other countries? Or you even go to the advanced countries, you go to a place like Australia, even government ministers don't have cars. Again, it's in a pool. You go and take it, go and do your work. When you finish, you leave it there. Then if you want your personal car, that's your business. Go and take your money and buy your personal car.
Dr. Draman, stay on for me because...